Hello, welcome to my channel. This is lecture 8 of the series Special Theory of Relativity, and as promised, this is lecture 2 of the 4 vectors, topic 4 vectors. So let's start with the topic. Firstly, a few important concepts. So in the last lecture, that is lecture 1 of the 4 vectors, we learnt about the concept of space-time. We had a lecture about introduction to space-time. If you haven't seen the lecture, I'll put the link in the description. In that lecture, we discussed a particle which is moving along a particular world line and an invariant quantity in the Einstein space-time, that is Minkowski flat space-time, which we call as space-time interval. So let's have a look at the space-time interval for a particle in space-time. Okay, so here in this figure we have an observer, and the observer is observing the particle which is moving from point 1, location 1 over here, to location 2. In this case, we will not consider the 4-dimensional space-time. We'll just consider the x component for the spatial directions and the time direction. So we have the coordinate axis of time and x as over here, and while moving from 1 to 2, the particle moves by an amount dx along the spatial direction x and by amount dt in the time direction. Okay, so as in the last lecture we defined a quantity, that is space-time interval. Here we define it in the same way. Therefore, from our figure we have that ds square is equal to c square dt square minus dx square, and here we consider that the particle is moving with velocity v along the x direction. Okay, so rearranging the terms over here in this equation of ds square and taking this c square dt square common, we have ds square is equal to c square dt square times 1 minus v square by c square. Okay, and further we take the square root of ds square and we get ds is equal to c dt times under root 1 minus v square by c square. And if you look properly, this is nothing but 1 over gamma, that is our Lorentz factor. Okay, now this is what we see the particle doing, that is, this is the observations from the observer's frame of reference. But there is one more frame of reference, and that is the particle's frame of reference, in which we'll get to know what the particle thinks about this motion. Okay, so in the frame of reference of particle we have time difference to be del tau, and in the limit where all these quantities are very small, the time difference is d tau. Now the space difference in the frame of reference of particle, which we call as del x, is equal to 0, because the particle has the right to say that it is at rest. The particle has the right to say that it is at rest because it is moving with a uniform velocity v in our frame of reference. Okay, so as the particle is at rest and we have ds square is equal to c square dt square minus dr square. This dr square includes all the 3 components, that is dx dy dz. But as the particle in its rest frame of reference is not moving, this component of dr square goes to 0, and therefore we have ds square is equal to c dt, where dt is equal to, in particle's rest frame, dt is equal to d tau. Okay, and thus we have this relation, that is ds is equal to c d tau. Now if we go to the system of units in which we can put the c equal to 1, we will get a good relation, that is a very important relation, that the space-time interval equals proper time. So in the units where c is equal to 1, we have an important relation, that is we get space-time interval is equal to the proper time. Now we have two relations for the space-time interval. One is in observer's frame of reference and one is in particle's frame of reference. Okay, now as it is the same quantity and the space-time interval is invariant irrespective of the frame of reference, so we can equate these equations for the space-time interval, and thus equating these two equations for the space-time interval, we have this thing, that is c d tau is equal to c dt into under root 1 minus v square by c square, and rearranging the terms we get dt by d tau is equal to 1 over under root 1 minus v square by c square, and this is nothing but our gamma. So if you take a look properly, you can see that we have just derived the differences, not the differences, okay, we can say differences, the differences in the time period that is measured in different frames of reference, and this is nothing but what we get from time dilation. That is, if a clock is moving in a particular frame of reference with respect to us, then for us that the clock, we see that the clock will be slowed down, which means that its time period increases. Okay, so here we have two comparisons of observation, that is, one is the observer's perspective and one is the particle's perspective. Since the particle will always think that it is at rest, and we know that the clocks run fastest in their rest frame of reference, so particle will always think that it took less time to go from 1 to 2 as compared to any other observer. Okay, so now let's start with the topic for which I have been building this stage since 2 lectures, the 4 vectors. Okay, so we can think these 4 vectors as vectors in 4 dimension, and since we have these vectors in 4 dimension, it is obvious that it will consist of 4 components. Okay, and we'll denote them by using indices 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the important thing over here is that we'll not use the indices 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll use the indices 0, 1, 2 and 3. The 0th component, the 0th index over here denotes the time component, and the first, second and third indices obviously denote the spatial components. Now an important thing about these 4 vectors is that they are invariant under Lorentz transformations. Okay, so they are invariant under Lorentz transformations. So now let's start with the first 4 vector, and the first 4 vector is obviously the position 4 vector, the most basic quantity in physics, that is the position, defining the position of an object. Okay, so we'll denote the 4 vectors by capital letters. So we denote the position vector over here by capital X, and therefore its components, as I told you that there are 4 components. So here we have the 4 components as follows with the indices 0, 1, 2, 3. The time component is x0, the position component is x1, x2 and x3. So this x0, that is the time component, 0th component, is nothing but ct. First component is x, second is y and third is z. So this is our normal 3D vector. But let us have a look at this 0th component. If you have a look at this 0th component, we don't have just time over here. We have multiplied it by c. So the reason that we have multiplied it by c is just to match the dimensions of the length, because since the dimension has time has the dimensions of t. Sorry. Okay, so the dimensions of t, time, are t, and to match the dimensions such that it becomes the dimensions of length, we have ct, which has the dimensions of length, and thus ct, x, y and z all have dimensions of length, and thus we have a consistency. So this is the position 4 vector and its components. It's very simple, the most basic 4 vector. Now moving towards the velocity 4 vector. Now in mechanics, what we do is to find out the velocity, we just differentiate with respect to time, not derivate, we differentiate with respect to time. But in Newtonian mechanics, time is an invariant quantity, and therefore we can differentiate with respect to it, because we always differentiate with respect to a quantity that is invariant. Okay, that's the basic rule. That is, the derivatives are taken with respect to a constant quantity. But in Einstein spacetime, that is the Minkowski flat spacetime, time is referred to as a coordinate, and therefore it's not invariant. So we take a quantity that is invariant in Minkowski flat spacetime, and that is the tau, that is proper time, which means that whoever the two observers may be, the observer 1 and observer 2, they will always agree on one thing, that is, what is the time elapsed in the frame of reference of the, in the rest frame of reference of the particle, that is the proper time. And we saw that the proper time equals the space-time interval, and space-time interval is obviously an invariant quantity, as we discussed in last lecture. So we will have this tau as a constant invariant quantity, and thus we'll differentiate the position 4 vector with respect to this tau to get the velocity 4 vector. Okay, so now let's do some mathematics, and thus we define v, capital V, velocity 4 vectors, as d capital X by d tau. This is nothing, you can ignore this. And we are using the chain rule over here. We write dx by d tau as d capital X by dt times dt by d tau. And from the previous slide, we know that dt by d tau is nothing but 1 over under root 1 minus v square by c square, that is our gamma. Okay, so moving further, so I have factored this gamma factor out, the Lorentz factor out, and these are the 4 components in velocity 4 vector. Obviously, we have to multiply each and every component with this Lorentz factor gamma. Okay, so if you see that, if you look at the first component of the velocity 4 vector, that is obviously v1, and it is the velocity in the x direction, x component of the velocity will get at vx over under root 1 minus v square by c square. And if the relative velocity is 0 or very small, we can neglect out this factor, and thus we'll get our Newtonian velocity, that is vx. Okay, yes, so this was velocity 4 vector. Here an important point to look at is the 0th component, that is the time component of the velocity 4 vector, is c gamma times c. So this gamma times c is nothing but c over under root 1 minus v square by c square. Okay, and at very low velocities, we will find this 0th component of 4 velocity to be just the speed of light in vacuum, that is c. Now moving towards 4 momentum. The momentum, 4 momentum is defined in the same way as we define classical momentum, that is m naught v. Here m naught is nothing but rest mass of the particle. Okay, so there are many concepts like the mass increases as the velocity goes on increasing and all, but we will only consider the rest mass, because we know only one thing about mass, and that is the rest mass. So we will not consider mass growing with velocities and all, we will just consider the rest mass. So what we have to do for finding the 4 momentum is that we have to just multiply this m naught by the 4 velocity with the 4 velocity vector, velocity 4 vector, and we get the 4 momentum as m naught over under root 1 minus v square by c square times the components of the velocity 4 vector. Okay, now let's have a look at the first component, that is the x component of the momentum, and that is m naught vx over under root 1 minus v square by c square. And when the relative velocity is very small, that is this v is very much less compared to c, at that time we can neglect this factor and we get p1 to be equal to our classical momentum, that is m naught vx. Similarly can be done for the y component and the z component. But if you have a look at the zeroth component of the momentum, and I'll write it down over here, it comes out to be m naught c over under root 1 minus v square by c square. And obviously we don't have an idea about like what this term is. Even if we go to the limit where the velocities are very less, we'll just get m naught c, and we don't know what this quantity is. So there's a doubt about what this quantity actually is. But if we concentrate and on this quantity and have a look properly, we'll see that if we multiply this quantity by c, we get m naught c square, and this mc square is something well known because we have the famous Einstein's formula E is equal to mc square, and thus we can get a hint from this quantity that the zeroth component of the momentum, that is this component, can be somewhat like E over c, that is energy over speed of light. Okay, so we'll not discuss this zeroth component of momentum, that is energy, in this lecture. We'll dedicate a separate lecture for that thing, which will be the next lecture of this 4 vectors. So I'll just leave this topic for next lecture. Now moving further. So in next lecture we will have P0, which is equal to, we'll study that the zeroth component is nothing but E by C, and thus energy is an invariant quantity. It is not a constant quantity, it's an invariant quantity. So, and we'll also discuss this important equation, E square is equal to P square C square plus M square C to power 4, and most famous equation, E is equal to mc square. So all these 3 important equations we'll learn it in the next lecture, the 3rd lecture. And thank you for your time. I hope you like this lecture. So if you like it, please like the lecture, share it, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.